Welcome back to Scandalous Los Angeles TV, where we expose the exposers. Just when you think it couldn't get any colder, it does. Delray Richardson from Straight Game TV just dropped a bombshell, digging up some old paperwork that originally appeared on J-Mix's channel. But it hits a whole lot different reading it now. According to this police report, on September 16th, 1996, just 3 days after Tupac's murder, Reggie Wright Jr. called the police to inform on Marion Knight. He reported that Marion was using Blood Gang members as armed security in the wake of Tupac's death. This was apparently an attempt to get Simon violated and locked up, opening the door for Reggie to step in and take control of Death Row Records. 3 days after losing Tupac, Reggie was already making his move. If that's not cold-blooded, I don't know what is.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, click on the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this Straight Game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification. And please share the videos on your by sharing, click sharing, yeah, from that perspective. I'm gonna get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen.
Now, for those of you guys who don't already know, Delray Richardson is a multi-platinum songwriter, producer, and recording artist, known for his work with some of hip-hop's most iconic figures. Operating under the moniker DJ Delvanara, he has collaborated with artists such as Tupac, Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent, and The Game. His contributions span songwriting, production, and performance, cementing his reputation in the industry. Richardson is also the founder of Del Funk Boy Music, LLC, a Los Angeles-based independent record label and music publishing company established in 1996. The label has achieved gold and platinum certifications and has secured numerous placements in television and film. In addition to his music career, Richardson has been vocal about industry practices, notably discussing financial disputes involving Death Row Records and Tupac Shakur. He revealed that Death Row owed Tupac approximately $17 million from album sales, highlighting issues of artist compensation and contractual agreements within the music industry. Delray Richardson's conflict with Reggie stems from a series of public accusations and legal actions that have unfolded over the years. He has been vocal about his criticisms of Reggie, particularly concerning Wright's alleged involvement in events surrounding Tupac's death and the operations of Death Row Records. Richardson uses his platform to discuss these issues, which has led to heightened tensions between the two. The tensions escalated into a legal battle when on November 8, 2023, Reggie filed a lawsuit against Delray Richardson in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. The case, titled Reginald Wright versus Delray Richardson, centered on claims of assault, libel, and slander. Wright alleged that Richardson made defamatory statements about him, which were disseminated through various media channels. As part of their settlement, Delray agreed to stop calling him Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Now, while I'm not exactly clear what Reggie agreed to in return, one thing's certain: he didn't stick to it. And once Reggie broke the agreement, Delray wasted no time. He brought the nickname right back. Reggie the Rat is back in full effect, because according to Delray, Reggie didn't keep his word.
Ladies and gentlemen, shout out to J-Mix. I want to show you that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. has always been trying to get rid of Suge Knight so that he could possibly take over Suge Knight's empire.
Reggie had a game plan, and he made it very, very clear that he wanted to take over Death Row Records. Make no mistake about that.
Right? And so now, not only take over his empire at the time, but now even hijack his stories ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to this. So there was a story about Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Trying to get Suge Knight's probation revoked, right? And this was in 1996. This was shortly after the death of Tupac Shakur, but before Suge was even going through the situation where he actually got violated for the situation at the MGM Grand, and he received 9 years. But check this out. It was discussed by J Mix. J Mix had did a video, and he had the paperwork, and he talked about an Officer Knox. The sad part about it is Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. denied, talking to any kind of police, never talking to LAPD or anything like that. He blamed it on, well, me and Suge, we had went down there, and it was in relation to, the boys that had got the gun pulled out on them by Suge at the studio and so on and so forth. It was an outright lie. Here's the paperwork, and I want you to check this out. This is serious, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I call him Reggie the Rat Wright Jr.? I'm going to show you how deceptive, how snake-like, how conniving Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. has been. I need you to pay attention to this. Check it out. So, on 9/16, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. When did Tupac die? When did Tupac die? Tupac died on 9/13. This is 3 days later, ladies and gentlemen. 3 days later after Tupac's death, right? Watch officers Jeter and Yamamoto were working a crime suppression detail to address gang activity problems at Death Row Records, 18730 Oxnard Street, Suite 211. Officer Jeter spoke with the head of security at Death Row, Reggie Wright, and was informed, listen ladies, and was informed by Mr. Wright that since the death of Tupac 3 days earlier, since the death of Tupac, Mary and Suge Knight was now using gangsters, Bloods from Compton, as his own personal bodyguards, and that they were armed. Officer Jeter was familiar with Knight's personal vehicle, which was there at the time at approximately 0500 hours. Jeters and Yamamoto observed 4 vehicles. This conversation basically led to an attempted felony stop of Suge Knight within hours. He watched the 4 vehicles leave Death Row Records in gang caravan fashion. The officer observed Suge Knight in the middle vehicle of the caravan. The officers attempted to stop Suge Knight's vehicle, but were interfered in making the stop by the rear vehicle, a green Humvee, driven by rapper MC Hammer. Subsequently, Hammer was questioned and released, warned only, right? Knight and the rest of his gang caravan eluded the police. Ladies and gentlemen, I first want to get you first have to understand the timeline. And what it says to me that most people were thinking that Suge Knight was really, dealing with Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. that way. You could clearly see at that particular time that Suge no longer trusted Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. with his security after what happened approximately a week earlier, if you will, on September 7th, 1996. Now, when you go back to this right here, you'll see clearly, dude, this is beyond comprehension, man. On 9/16/1996, this is 3 days after Tupac died, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is ratting on Suge Knight. He's informing the police that since the death of Tupac Shakur, Mary and Suge Knight was now using gangsters, Bloods from Compton in his own personal body as his own personal bodyguards, and they were armed. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get any worse than this. It doesn't get any worse than this. When you talk about somebody being a backstabber, like the OJ song said, right? They smile in your face but all at the same time they want to take your place. Backstabbers. If you look in the dictionary, you will see Reggie the Rat Wright Jr.'s face right there. What it says to me, and the reason why this was being done, was Tupac was out of the way now, right? You know, Tupac gone, you know. And like I told you, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Created the environment in which he's been caught in so many lies, right? Saying, well, I never told him to not carry guns. We already know that's a lie because his security guard, who was Michael Moore's roommate, basically confessed on a tape that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. did in an interview with Tim Williams, his name is, right? Go check it out. It's over there on Bums First. But more importantly, you got to understand the time and what's going on at this particular time. See, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. has always been trying to pass the buck over to Frank Alexander, and everybody else was incompetent, right? But here, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., you know, 3 days after Tupac's death, is informing the police that Suge Knight is now using gangsters, Bloods from Compton, has his own personal bodyguards, and that they were armed. He was snitching as Suge Knight was right there outside in the parking lot, and they observed the vehicles leaving, and they tried to pull him over based on the information that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. provided against the guy who ultimately set him up to have a job, to have a company, and do all of these things. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not understand who Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is, from this right here, and like I said, you got to take into consideration the time. Dude, Tupac ain't been dead a month. He ain't been dead 1 month. And Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. has already flipped on Suge, because what he realized was that now, after being fired by Tupac on the 27th, less than 30 days ago, prior to Tupac's being shot and succumbing to the gunshot wounds, right? Right? Not even 30 days later, not even 3 days after or a month after Tupac's death, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is informing to Officer Jeter and Officer Yamamoto about Suge Knight having his personal security being conducted by gangsters, Blood members. See, and you know, because see, 1 minute Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. will tell you that you know, I grew up with all these guys, and trying to get you to think that he was some kind of some way sort of ingratiated with these guys. See, this is a common method. This is the thing that he does, right? But then on the flip side, right, he will go and do this. He will go and do this. 3 days after Tupac died, AM watch officers, Jeter and Yamamoto, were working a crime suppression detail to address gang activity. And what I like about this is it's dated and it's timed, right? So there can be no ambiguity as to whether this is true. They documented it, right? Right? A gang a suppression detail to address gang activity problems at Death Row Records, 18730 Oxnard Street, Suite 211. I believe that was the studio that they were at, right? Officers Jeter spoke with the head of security. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. said, man, I never had no conversation. So he even lied about this because he said he never had a conversation with him, right? Reggie the Rat was informed. Listen, Reggie Wright, they talked to Reggie Wright and they were informed by Mr. Wright that since the death of Tupac, Murray and Suge Knight was now using gangsters, Blood members from Compton as his personal detail. Remember at the Soul Train Music Awards, Reggie did the same thing. Reggie snitched on the other guys. Now, we don't really know what was going to go on. We seen the night that Suge Knight was there. Suge Knight also had on one of those burgundy sweatshirts that said something about, I think, P-Funk or whatever on, and you see Tupac Tupac had the fatigue jacket on that night at the Soul Train Music Awards, right? But listen, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. did the same exact thing in January, February, March of 2016. Right? He said he informed the police. Once again, that's what Suge Knight called him, a Judas. So do you think, based on that incident and this incident in which Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. can't deny, based on the date, time, I mean, I'm just appalled that it's 3 days after Tupac died, you know? And now all of a sudden, the guy who was the head of the failed security, and I can understand Suge probably using his homeboys now. He couldn't trust Reggie. Reggie was a weak link. Look what happened in Vegas. So Suge said, you know what? I'm going to take it, you know, with the homies because, like I said, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. had failed. This is this is clear evidence that Suge had lost confidence in Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., period. So for all of the people saying, well, why did, Suge let Reggie run his company? This is proof right here. Reggie didn't run the company. He didn't run nothing. Like I told you, it was Miss Chalet. I showed you guys the affidavit. And where Suge said, when they asked him in court, who ran your company while you were incarcerated? And he said, Miss Chalet. Reggie was just the liaison. He was not a label boss. He always wanted Suge Knight out of the way. As you can clearly see with this right here. You can clearly see it. So ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand who you've been listening to, right? The lies that they've been telling. Gullible John also knows all of this, tried to jump on the bandwagon and trying to exploit Tupac, his music, his name, and John did not even know Tupac. So you got to understand, take this really, you got to digest this, man. This is 9/16/1996, man. 3 days after Tupac died. And the police are coming, and like I said, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is basically telling on Suge, and it led to the conversation, or the informed information conversation led to an attempted felony traffic stop of Suge Knight within hours. Within hours. Amazing. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, you see what it is now that's going on. This is the reason why Suge Knight called Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. a Judas. Your boy Del Rey, straight game.